I'm missing everything right now. I don't have my clicker. I don't know where anything is. That's just the way the morning goes, right? Like that's because I look around all the shelves and I look around at the stores. Kevin was complaining that Publix didn't have any shopping carts and all that stuff, and the only thing I could say is the end is near, right? The end is near. The hand sanitizer is gone. Toilet paper cannot be found anywhere, right? Like that's it. You can't find anything. The toilet paper has got to be the most funny one of this whole thing. Thanks, Kevin. It's got to, like, the end is near. Like everything is collapsing all around us. Here's what you got to understand. So some of you may be thinking, like, oh man, this end is near thing. Like he's taking current events and look at him. Yes. But here's what you got to also understand. I always think this is funny how this works out. I write all my sermons, and with my buddy Mark, all right, who's a pastor in Tampa. We also write all of our sermon series, and what we're going to discuss each day, we try to get a year ahead. We wrote this sermon series in May of last year. Wild, huh? Like, so when we and I got together, like we were like, oh, this is very fitting. Like on the Sunday where we're thinking about canceling service, we have lots of friends canceling service. And people are doing wild things so that people can get together and all that stuff. Like it's the sermon reading is about how the end is near. And we look around, and it really seems that way right now. I mean, do you see the Dow Industrial Index? I mean, it went down a lot this week, like a lot. And then the Gov threw a bunch of money at it. It went up a little bit, and then went back down again. Like, it's just a big mess. And we look at all of that, and we look at all the sickness and the hurting and the sin and all of that stuff in the world, and we think about it like, oh my goodness, the end is near. And there's a level of truth to that, right? Like we look around and we see sin is real, there's sickness is real, life can be really tough, and we're like, it's the end is near. And that's what Peter's saying. That's what Peter's saying. Like we're looking at this sermon series. We're looking at 1 Peter in here, and he's talking to a group of people, a group of Christians that have been kind of ripped from their homeland. They've been ripped because of persecution and other things, and they've been forced to go primarily into Asia Minor, which is modern-day Turkey, go up into there, and they've had to become slaves and indentured servants, and they don't know any of the practices up there. They've lost a lot of their identity, and they've lost everything. They've been driven into dispersion, and Peter is reminding them that the end is near. But how do we normally respond when the end is near? We go and buy all the hand sanitizer, right? Like all of it. Like, listen, I have a certain amount of coveting for our precious one bottle of it that we got in the back of the church here. If you steal our bottle of hand sanitizer, boo hiss on you. Right? Like that boo hiss. And so like, but we got our precious bottle here. We got the fancy bottle of it up here. Like, so, I can't do that. We got hand sanitizer everywhere. Like but what happens, when we do that? I think my friend George actually kind of, I think when the rubber meets the road and we get into a situation, I think sometimes we act like this. Let's see here.
Oh, what's that smell? Smoke? Everybody, I think I smell some smoke back here. It was an inferno in there! An inferno!
There he is! That's him! The cowards that left us here!
So yeah, Seinfeld. Coley and I are big Seinfeld fans. Like that's But like you just like, oh, it's at the fire, the end is near, and you start running around and going after all the different things, right? Like we go all those stuff and hoard everything for ourselves. Because that's kind of what fear does, is it makes us like, oh no, the end is near, and like we begin to curl in on ourselves. We begin to only think about ourselves. Well, Peter here, and then we're looking at the end of his book this week, chapter 4, and he wants to remind us of something. So I'm going to read some of what Cheryl read just a little bit ago. He says, "The end of all things is at hand. The end is near. Therefore, be self-controlled and sober-minded for the sake of your prayers. Above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins. Show hospitality to one another without grumbling, as each has received a gift. Use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's varied grace." Like, I think what's interesting here is that I think sometimes in our mind we divorce the idea of Peter that's palling around with Jesus from the Peter that wrote 1 Peter. And then we separate those people in our mind. I'm like, oh, those are two different people. But they're the same. And if we look at Peter's life and what he means at the top there, to say the end of things is at hand, the end is near, right? He's wearing that little sandwich board that's saying the end is near. Like that's, he's saying that. He's like, what he means by that, we can get some of that if we go back and look at his life. Because think about what Peter actually went through. Like he was walking around, palling around with Jesus, and he thought, he knew that Jesus was the Messiah, that he was God, that he was the Christ, the one who was going to save his people. Like he saw that, and he knew that was the case, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that was what was going to be what happens. And then he saw himself deny Jesus. That's such a chilling thing in the gospel when after he denies him 3 times, then Jesus looks over at him. Like, can you imagine that? It's like when you were a small child and you'd done something bad and you look over at your mom and she's just staring at you. Your mom was burning a hole in the side of your head. Like that's like with her vision. Like I kind of like Peter was like, oh man, and he looked over and Jesus was just staring. Like that's not a good sight. That's not a good sight. That's not good. And then he continues to watch as Jesus then dies. How much responsibility did Peter put on himself for that action? I think we can see that by what he does after Jesus is killed, after Jesus dies. Like he goes back and he just starts fishing. Like I think we do that sometimes, right? When we're so stuck in fear and depression, all that, sometimes we just go back to what we know. Peter knew fishing. He's like, I'm going to go back to that. And the irony in the Gospel of John is that he's not even good at that anymore. He can't catch anything. Like that's and he think about the amount of responsibility he took for the death of God. That's a lot that he put on himself. But the beautiful thing about Jesus is that he rose from the dead. He rose from the dead, and when he comes and sees Peter, he comes to him and all the disciples after he raises up, and he breathes on them. Now that's weird. It's like, well, I hope Jesus didn't have a garlic knot or something like that. But some people are like, that's inappropriate. But breathe in Greek and Hebrew, we separate spirit and breathe in our language, but in Greek and Hebrew, both languages, breathe, spirit, and wind is all the same word. So when Jesus breathes on them, it has this idea of spiriting on him and spiriting the forgiveness of sins onto Peter and all of those disciples. That he comes and he forgives them, right? And then after Jesus calls to Peter after the failed fishing attempt, he calls him up on the beach and Jesus says, Peter, do you love me? And he says it 3 times. The amount of times that Peter denied him. Jesus constantly reinstates Peter. And I think what Peter's trying to get at here is he's saying that the end of all things is at hand. I think he's saying to all of us and to these Christians that are kind of losing their way and they don't know what's happening. All the hand sanitizer's gone. They don't know what to do, right? He's saying to them, listen, guys, you are the people of the end. That our Lord is the beginning and the end, or the way I think Peter would say it, that he is the end and the beginning. That he is the end of the beginning. And you are people of the cross because we take up our crosses and follow him. So you are people of the end. And as people who are in the end and people of the end, we now realize that, and we treat others around us the same way the God of the end and the beginning treats everyone. And that's with love and compassion and forgiveness, being self-controlled and sober-minded, because God shows us all those things in a multiplicity, a kaleidoscope of grace. And he says, you guys can all do that too. And I think that's great. When we look around the world, and it just seems like everything's collapsing all around us, where we don't know what's going to happen with the financial stuff, or we don't know what's going to be, where our 401k is going to be. Some of you are going, I don't know if I can eat meat this week, like it's just going to be beans only. And we look at that, and we can look and see this, and he says, listen, the end is at hand. You're a people of the end. But our God is the God of the end too. And he loves you so much. And he'll never forget you, never forsake you. So let's not forget our neighbors either, or forsake them. But continue to love them and reach out to them and make sure that they're okay. So what that means in this church this week, there are people, we've been averaging 130 people a week lately. 2 weeks ago, we were 2 people shy of 150 in this place, which is unreal. How many do we have today? Do you know? 90 between the 2 services. This is the same number as we had last week, which I'm actually happy about. Because if we were packing it in like we were a few weeks ago, I would be worried. And I'll tell you this, I would guarantee have turned off the service next week. Because being packed in is how you spread the virus. And so this is how it goes. But this church has done so many. So there are people that we know that aren't here today. And it's good that they're not here. They don't need to get out and all those things. High risk individuals, all that. But because we're people of the end, this week we can call them, right? We can call the people around there. Because one thing I realize about church, and especially church where there's a lot of older folks, I'm not pointing any fingers. But church is a lot of the social interaction. And so if we can be church to them over the phone this week, I think that would be great. I think that would be living in those times, and remind them that if they want to have communion. Remember Wednesday between 11 and 2, they can come and they can get communion and have a little bit of human interaction, right? Like this, that's important. It's important, and we need to remember those times that we continue to honor our humanity. And I think that when we look at those things as we're the body of Christ living together and being people of the end, we go forward loving, and I think that's good news. And that's where the sermon's going to end, but now I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about this remember the future stuff. So we started this last week. Now, I got to be completely honest with you. Starting a capital campaign in the midst of a pandemic is probably not the wisest thing I've ever done. Probably not the wisest thing. And I was talking to a lot of people this week about what should we do? Should we cancel it, bring it back later? We don't know when we would bring it back later. And then it kind of hit me that I was like, I was trying to game the system to trick you out of some of your money. As if that would work, right? And I was like, no, that's just playing games. And I don't want to play games. So I'm going to continue going on like we would before all this. I'm going to let you know we have some goals and all that stuff kind of coming forward, and we're going to hand out pledge cards here in just a little bit like that for you to take home and think and pray on it and all that stuff. I hate to be manipulative. Gosh, I hate it. And so I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you where we are, what's going on, because you guys deserve that, I think, right? And if I'm not honest with you, I won't be able to sleep at night. I'll be worried about it. So one of our promises to you was that we wouldn't ask for money until we started building the building. We're building the building, which is wonderful, right? It's great. And this church has been so amazing throughout this whole process. So what we've done is we've wanted to, we created something called Remember the Future, and it has multiple goals in it. So let me tell you what the goals are first, the fancy titles for them. The first goal is called Remember Today. Then we have Remember the Beauty. Then we have Remember the Future. And remember today is $175,000. Now here's what's going on with that. So $175,000. When we reach that goal of raising that amount of money from here, we'll redecorate this existing building. The way I have it put on here, let me make sure my wording is correct. When contributions reach each goal, we'll celebrate with the following projects. All right? So the first project is when we get to $175,000, we'll redecorate this building. Now, you're asking, what's redecorating? Think no permit, right? Think walls and floors, like paint and flooring, right? Because if we got to pull a permit on this building, it's going to get expensive in a hurry, right? So think walls and floors. Basically what we want to do is Alzheimer's Community Care does an amazing job of picking colors which are inviting, homey, and durable. And those are all things that I want this place to be too. So we want to make this building look like the new one too. And so that's what we'll do when we reach $175,000. And this is going to pay off the debt that we're incurring to build this new building. We're taking a loan of $416,000 plus a bunch of money that we had already in the building fund before that. So we're going to pay that off. So the next one is it's called Remember the Beauty, and it's $250,000. Now this isn't $250 plus $175, it's just $250. When we reach that level, we will fix the parking lot. Yeah, thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Cheryl. I say fix the parking lot, and everyone just stares at me. And it's like, listen, you guys, like all I hear is complaints about the parking lot. Like you guys should be running around the chairs and stuff like that when I say that. Also, landscaping. What we're talking about there is the city had us put in part of the new building $100,000 of landscaping in this place. This place is going to be a paradise after the builders are done with it, right? But none of that is going around to replace any of this old landscaping that we have around the building. So this is what I'm talking about. So fix the parking lot and put new landscaping in around this building, because we're having to replace the toilets in there right now. You know why? Because they're old. They're old and they don't work anymore. That's what's going on with these bushes. It's the same thing out there. So $250,000 we'll be able then to afford to be able to fix the parking lot. I don't know what that means yet, what fix means. We got to figure that out. But to landscape around this new building. And then the last one is, it says $500,000, and that's about what it would need to be. But it means debt-free. It means no debt. And if we can do this building project, we're debt-free. In all reality, we would be within 4 years of considering a new sanctuary. And I'm not saying that I know that there's some people that come to church here that came from, especially like Hope, where they had a lot of difficulties there. That's something that we've been busting at the seams in this place, right? And that's 4 years down the line, and that's something that we could afford if that was the case. Like, that's a big goal, and that's a big thing. So, Kevin, if you wouldn't mind passing those out now so that you can see them on there. But one of the things that I talked to you about last week, so let me tell you what that looks like. So $500,000 is the goal. And if we spread that over 130 people, which is what we've been averaging lately, 130 people, and we spread that over 3 years, what that is, that's $106 a month per person. And remember, this is over and above your normal giving. We don't want, we don't want that to interfere with that. We still have to pay the light bill, all right? So that's $106 per person a month is what that is. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Some of you are going, oh my goodness, like $106 a month per person. Like I can't do that. That's fine. Some of you can and can do more than that. But that's the beauty of when we live life together. That we are able to pool our resources together. And whether the gift is large or small, it is a gift to the Lord, to this project here. And I told you guys, I was going to tell you today what Coley and I are going to give. And we lost a lot of money this last week too. We did, but that's fine. None of it was really counting on any of this. But Coley and I are going to give $15,000 to this. That is $420 a month. That's the two of us were each taking 2 people along with us. Okay? I want to tell you what that means for us. All right? I'm going to tell you about some debt that we have. I'm not going to talk about the house. I'm not going to talk about cars. I'm going to talk about student loans. I've been out of school now 8.5 years. I still have $8,400 in student loans. That's all. That's someone that has people that are in college or coming out right now, right? You just know the situation, right? Yeah. $8,400. Now, listen to how she said that. Is that all? Coley just finished her program where she got her second master's degree and all that stuff. Well, she's in the middle of it right now. She'll be done in July, hopefully. She has just shy of $16,000 in student loans. So that means what? We have $24,000, $25,000 in student loans right now. And I've been paying mine off. Mine started off as $45,000. And let me tell you this, my situation was good. And I'm telling you that for a couple different reasons. I've been making a good car payment for the last 8.5 years on that, and I still got years to go, right? And I wanted to let you know that this is digging deep for Coley and I in this situation. It's digging deep. And the other thing it says to you, I hope, is that we're serious about this place. We're not looking for just the next gravy train that's going to come in, right? This isn't a pad on the resume. I've been to other churches. It's not necessarily better, But we're committed to this place, and we want to show that to you. We've also changed some things about our life so that we can afford this. We have changed fundamentally how we use electricity in the house, so much so that we save about $50 a month on our electricity bill. If you want to know how I do that, come and ask me. I guarantee you won't want to do it, though. That's but $50 a month is quite a lot. But we do things that mere mortals don't want to do to get that. Also, our cars they plug in now. That saves us $160 a month in fuel. We've actively made changes so that we can afford this. So I just want that's as manipulative as I'm going to get, is to tell you what Coley and I are giving on this. And so we're going to give $420 for 36 months, hopefully. Now, here's the thing. We have faced financial disaster here recently, right? And no one knows what's going on. We don't know what the next month is going to look like, right? So here's what I ask you to do. Think about this. Think about what you can do safely now, or whatever, how much you want to do. We're going to revisit this again later. Maybe in the fall, maybe in the winter when the winter folks are back down. That's a joke. But maybe a year from now, maybe next February, something like that. Because I have a feeling things will be back to normal at least by a year later. So, but I want you to consider it now, and you can change whatever you want at any time. We just ask that you communicate it to us. We just want to be communicated with because we want to plan against some of this pledging that's come in. So, but we are the people of God in this place, right? Like we are the people of God here, and we want to be with you and walk with you as we go out and we serve those people who haven't had good news said to them in a while. We want to give them good news. And so that's what we're doing. And that's kind of my spiel for today. So when disaster befalls us, like is going on outside right now, and the pastor's asking for ridiculous amounts of money, just remember, I appreciate the laugh. Like that. When the pastor's asking for all of that, like just remember that we are people of the end. And that when everything seems to be collapsing, we do what we do best. And that's love and serve, because that's what our Lord does for us.